This is our second webinar in our Learn Over Lunch webinar series for the spring 2017 semester, all about networking and personal branding. Today's topic is networking beyond the norm. Your presenters for this afternoon include myself. I'm Shannon Gallo, the Manager of Career Services here at CUNY SPS. And Kelsey Richardson is our other presenter. She's our Senior Career Advisor here in Career Services as well. We look forward to speaking with you today. A couple of housekeeping items before we move into our presentation. If you do have any technical problems today, we want you to call 1-800-263-6317. Then press 1 for Go To Webinar, and then 2 for tech support. During today's webinar, we look forward to answering your questions after we've given our remarks. In order to ask questions, you use the chat feature. On your screen, you can see on the left, the diagram shows what it looks like if you're using a Mac, and on the right, a PC. So please do send us your questions at any point during our remarks, and then we'll get to the questions in the second half of today's webinar. Finally, we are offering a live stream of captions of the audio of today's webinar, so if you're interested in logging on to see that, the link is at the bottom of your screen, and it's also been provided in the chat field. Before we move ahead, I did want to say thank you to Anthony Sweeney, our virtual campus coordinator. He's providing some very valuable assistance to us in delivering our webinar. So without any further ado, let's get started. Our agenda for this afternoon includes some remarks about LinkedIn, very valuable in job search and of course networking. Informational interviews will be covered. Volunteerism, which is another way to sort of network beyond the norm, professional associations, and finally campus involvement. So let's get started. LinkedIn. I think if I were in person and I looked around the room and I said, show me if you raise your hand if you use LinkedIn, hopefully everyone's hands would go up. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network online. It has over 467 million members in more than 200 countries and territories across the world. Professionals sign up to join LinkedIn at a rate of more than 2 members per second. So that 467 million might actually be greater now, given that these statistics were from a couple of weeks ago. There are more than 40 million students and recent grads using LinkedIn, and this is actually the fastest growing demographic for the site. The final statistic about LinkedIn, which I think is very powerful, is that 96% of recruiters use social media in recruiting. So only 4 out of 100 recruiters are not using this site to find employees. And of those 96%, 87 of them primarily use LinkedIn for recruitment. So that just tells you right there why it's such a crucial tool for networking and branding and job search. So I'm going to go over a couple of things about LinkedIn, and then I'm going to actually show you those on my LinkedIn profile. First of which is groups, and this is a feature that you can use really to connect with others on the site and build relationships, whether it's with peers or colleagues or prospective employers. I'll also show you the SPS group. LinkedIn is also very valuable to use in researching, maybe in advance of a networking event, or if you're looking to find people, which I'll discuss later, for informational interviews. You can find prospects on the site for that. And also, it's a great way to do some research after you meet someone new. to find out more about their background and see if it might be of interest to you to build a further relationship with that person using LinkedIn. It's a great tool for maintaining connections that you make, particularly if you're looking to make a career change. It's a good way to sort of keep track of the people you know in your prior field and people that you might know within your next one. The other thing to keep in mind is that LinkedIn is a great way to sort of take people who might be your friends or family connections into the professional realm. It's a good way to sort of cross that line in some cases from personal to professional in terms of your friends and family. So keep that in mind as you're trying to build your network on the site. LinkedIn is also a good way to sort of take your networking from the real world to the virtual world online. I'll show you some examples in the activity feed of how you can leverage when connections get new jobs or promotions, when they make posts or write articles on the site, when there are events happening or people get mentioned on LinkedIn. This is a really good way to sort of network with your connections in the virtual world rather than in real life. And all of these are found in your activity updates feed. LinkedIn is also a really, really good way to augment your job applications. So while networking is a crucial part of every successful job search, still applying online for jobs is also important, and I'll give you some examples, an example of why applying through LinkedIn can be very useful. It's a good way to augment applications that you're putting in or that you're seeing on other job posting websites, and it's also a good way to sort of follow along with people in organizations using LinkedIn when you're applying for jobs. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and show you some of these things on LinkedIn that I've just reviewed. Give me a moment just to switch my screen over. Okay, here we go. So what you're seeing on your screen is this is my own public profile. This is what's visible to an individual on LinkedIn who searches for different keywords, and then my profile comes up and they click on it. This is what someone sees if they are not connected with me already. As you can see on here, I don't have my profile photo visible to someone that I'm not connected with, but I have enough information available for them to see to get an idea if maybe my profile has the types of things that they're looking for. I've got my name. I do choose to include my maiden name in parentheses just in case someone knows me from before I was married professionally. I have a heading, Career Development Professional, HR and Staffing Background. Notice that I've chosen to use a heading that's not the default, which would be my job title, because someone can easily see my job title if they look just a little further down my profile. So I choose to use that valuable space for something that's a little bit more descriptive of myself and my profession in general. I have my experience listed with titles, locations, and dates. I have my skill sets included. I have my education and a few recommendations that are visible. So this just gives you an idea of some of the things that someone could see on my public profile. If I were interested in customizing it, I could do so here on the right-hand side. The next thing that's showing is, this is my profile as I see it, and if I were to make changes and edits to the profile. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how you might go about doing that if you were making edits to your own profile. So I logged into the site, and this is sort of what comes up if I go into my own profile page. And as you can see on each of these sections where the little pencil is, that's what you would click if you were looking to make changes to that section of your profile. This section here shows featured skills and endorsements that I have. So these are the types of things that are most frequently endorsed by people in my network. The recommendations section, this shows recommendations that I've received. There are 7. If I wanted to see recommendations that I've given for others, there are 9 of those. Organizations are listed here, which are the organizations that I'm part of in real life and where those are represented virtually on my profile. And this section here has what organizations or companies or people that I'm following. If I wanted to see the public profile, what people see when they're not connected to me, when I'm here on this section, I click right here, edit your public profile, and then it brings up the page that I just showed. Okay, I'll just show you a couple of other things on the site. This section here is the groups section. If you go to your different groups within your profile, those would all be listed here. And I just wanted to show you the CUNY School of Professional Studies group, as this is a great way for those of you who are students or graduates or staff or faculty or employers or others who are interested in the SPS community. You know, this group is growing and growing each day. There's definitely the number of members is certainly getting bigger and bigger, and I think that there's more interaction the more people who join. So I would encourage those of you who are part of our community to join this group if you have not already. It's a really good way within the groups on LinkedIn to see sort of what's happening within some of your communities. I will show you a couple of other groups that I think are interesting that tend to have a lot of information. Most of the groups that I have joined, as you can see, are related to higher education, career services, career development, human resources, social media, those kinds of things. And that's typically what I would recommend you join for whatever field you may be in. So if you're a media professional, join groups that are related to media careers. If you are a professional in data analytics or IS, I would suggest joining those kinds of groups. I also recommend joining groups related to your, as I mentioned, SPS, or if you are in other professional associations, joining groups that are related to that. It's a great way if you join a group and then you later attend a networking event that that group has sponsored. It's a good way to research in advance to get an idea of who might be attending the event and who might be potential for you to talk with and network with and meet. It's also a good way to find out what types of topics seem to be important to that particular group, because maybe you want to brush up a little bit on those concepts before you attend a networking event. LinkedIn is a really good way to sort of get that insider information and do research in advance of going to networking events. Okay, so what you see on your screen now is what it looks like in LinkedIn when you first log in. If you click on the little blue box that says in, this brings up your activities. And this basically is similar to the timeline on Facebook. This is sort of your activity feed, and this provides just an ongoing mention of all the different activities that are going on within your network and with your connections. So this is a great way for you to see different types of things that are happening. As I scrolled down and when I looked earlier today, I noticed that there was a job listing posted by a colleague here at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. I noticed that another connection had posted an activity update. Other connections here posted information about a colleague. Something that's happening exciting in this individual's company was posted. There are some advertisements. Others, this is an article that a colleague has listed. something here is really interesting, I'll go ahead and click on this article. If I were interested in the work that this colleague is posting, and I know that she does great writing and the topics are of interest to me typically, I might take a few minutes and read through this article that she had posted, and then maybe I would go back and like that she had posted it, or I would comment and say, this was a really interesting post. I really like what you explained about maintaining relationships with past employers and how that can be useful for salary negotiation with future jobs. It's a really easy way to sort of see what's going on in your network and to sort of take networking from the real world to the virtual world. This is also useful because if in a week or so I attend a networking event and I research in advance and I see that this individual is part of that association and they may be attending that networking event, I can keep in mind that she wrote this article, and when I see her at the networking event, I can mention that I read her article and how interesting I thought it was. You can also find out about things like birthdays or new jobs and those kinds of things. So it's a good idea if you are scrolling through your activity feed and you see that someone was just promoted into a new position, write them a note of congratulations, and then perhaps the next time you see that individual, mention it again. LinkedIn is, just like Facebook, is a great way to sort of congratulate people or recognize people for accomplishments and growth that's sort of doing something that you might do in real life virtually. A couple other things that I'll show you on the site. Okay, this section here is your connections, and this is one of the ways that LinkedIn can be more and more powerful is if you gain more and more connections. I had mentioned earlier that connecting with friends and family is something to keep in mind when you're using LinkedIn, and I think that that's sort of a good place to start if you're trying to build a larger network of contacts on the site. The next place I would say to start is current colleagues, instructors, classmates, as well as those that you may have worked with relatively recently. It's also a good idea to connect with vendors or clients that you know through your work. Any of these people, the more people that you have in your network and the more connections you have, the more powerful LinkedIn can be for you. In order to find your connections, when you're on your profile, you can see who's viewing your profile. You can go to the little icon on the top of the screen, My Network, and then you can see all of your different connections that you have. If I had invitations from connections waiting, they would show up right here where it says Pending Invitations. LinkedIn is really, really good about showing you people that you should connect with, people that may be in your network one way or another. LinkedIn has a lot of stuff that goes on in the back end that sort of shows you people that you might want to connect with. This person has 8 mutual connections. This person works in the same organization. This person has 1 mutual connection, but it seems like they may have different groups that are the same. Keep in mind that this can be a really easy way to connect with people on LinkedIn that you may not have otherwise thought of. And I also, something that I'll mention here, I have my LinkedIn profile set up so that if someone is connected with me, they are able to see other people who are connected with me. And I think that that's very useful because I want my connections to be able to have more use on the site as well, so that if they're able to see who I'm connected with, they're able to better utilize the network that I have. Because one of the other things you can do with LinkedIn is help people. And if someone's able to see my connections, then they're able to see how they might better be able to leverage my network, and I may in turn be able to leverage theirs. Another thing that I want to show on LinkedIn is the Jobs section. So when you are on your LinkedIn, the icon on the top of the screen, Jobs, if you click that, And I did a little bit of researching earlier today in the essence of time, but if you are looking on LinkedIn and you, actually let me go first here. So let's pretend that I had an interest in an organization called Undertone. And I was using Indeed.com to look for job listings, and I did a search under that organization, and I see that that organization has a job posted a week ago for Manager of Learning and Development. So this is that position, and I'm looking here, and I'm thinking that this might be a job of interest to me, and I'm thinking about applying. But before I apply on this website where lots and lots of other people might be just applying directly, and who knows where my resume is going to go, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and see if I can find that job posted there. So I go to the LinkedIn jobs section, and I type in the name of the company and search, and boom, there it comes. Manager Learning and Development, and this is posted here on LinkedIn. So now I'm going to take a look at the LinkedIn posting. It's the same job, exactly what I saw posted outside of LinkedIn. It has the same information about that position, but there's a lot more that I can see on LinkedIn. I can see that on this particular posting that I have one person within my network some way, somehow, that is at this organization. I can see that this company is Ad Age is one of the best places to work, which is very appealing to me, so I'm able to follow this organization. Now there will be activities and things that show up in my activities update about this organization where I apply for a job. If I were interested in applying, I could do so here. They call it LinkedIn Easy Apply. And they bring up the information so that I'm able to apply using my LinkedIn profile, but I can also upload a resume and a cover letter along with my LinkedIn profile. I'm not going to actually apply today, but that's where you would do it if you were choosing to do so. The other thing that I wanted to show on here is that there is one person within my network at Undertone. They also studied at West Virginia University where I attended college, and this is that individual. The two of us have 3 shared connections. So if I were interested in reaching out to her, I could send her an invitation to connect, and I would add a note, and I would say, hello, I noticed that we have 3 mutual connections. I'm impressed with Undertone as a company, and I was wondering if you could connect with me so I could learn more. And then I would send the invitation. That way she's getting this invitation from me and not completely blind where she doesn't have any idea how I know her or why I would want to connect with her, but I'm giving her an idea of why I'm interested. And in that case, maybe I could say to her, if she does accept my connection, I could then send her an email and say, do you have a couple of minutes to chat? I would love to learn more about Undertone. I see that we have 3 mutual connections. And that may make her more likely to reach back out to me and be willing to give me a little bit of time. Once I've done that, when I'm applying for the position, I can better situate myself and provide the right types of things on my resume and in my cover letter based on what she's told me about the organization. So that's just a couple of things that you can learn, that you can do using LinkedIn for applying for jobs online, in addition to actually using the site for networking. So before we move on, I just wanted to remind everyone to send your questions. We will certainly be addressing them as we move ahead. Finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about informational interviews. The purpose of these is to gather information and advice about a job or a field or an organization and build your network. It's not the same thing as a job interview. It's certainly an opportunity for you to meet someone and talk about yourself, but it's better to ask for ideas, impressions, and advice from them rather than a job or referring a resume. Follow-up is crucial with informational interviews. Once you get the time to talk with someone in an informational interview, you want to make sure that you use that as the springboard for your relationship in the future. And I'll leave this sort of introduction to this in saying that people will talk about themselves for hours if you let them. So all you have to do is ask them. But as I said, ask for their ideas, ask for their advice, ask for their impressions about a company or a field, rather than saying, can you help me get a job in your company, or can you send my resume to your boss? Informational interviews, as I said, are sort of the springboard for networking. It's kind of the first step in building a relationship with a person. You want them to get to know you and learn enough about you and your interests and your experience and your qualifications so that the next time they hear about a job opening at their organization or from a colleague at a different organization, they pick up the phone and say to you that there's a job open, and then they ask if they can refer you for the job, because it looks great on them if they can refer a strong candidate for a job opening. Informational interviews, I also wanted to mention that they can be an alternative to an internship if an internship isn't really something that you can fit into your schedule. I know that lots of SPS students in particular are so busy with working and classes and family and other things in their lives that they're not able to do an internship, even if that might be of benefit to their career. So informational interviews can sort of be a smaller time commitment, but they can still be very valuable in allowing you to build your network and get to know people and get people to know you. Another thing that can come from an informational interview is a mentor-mentee relationship. As I said, people love to talk about themselves, and they actually love to help other people as well. So keep in mind that if you're able to set up an informational interview with someone, that it's just the beginning of a relationship. And even if it doesn't seem like you're getting a dividend from it at the very beginning, creating that relationship and building on it from there is crucial. So with informational interviews, you want to first choose who you're going to target and how. And one of the best ways to do that is do your research on LinkedIn. This is a good way for you to find people who can refer you to others, or to reach out to people and ask them to connect with you on LinkedIn as a first step toward an informational interview. The other thing is to use an event. If you attend a networking event and you meet someone, perhaps that can be a good person to target for an informational interview. Before you go into it, even though it's not a job interview, you want to prepare in much the same way. Do your research about the organization, do your research about the person you'll be meeting with, and do your research and know yourself. Figure out what on your resume you want to make sure you talk about, what you want to ask them about in that field, and make sure that you do enough research on the organization that you're able to, and the industry, that you're able to have an intelligent conversation with them and ask them articulate questions. You want to make it as easy as possible for the interviewer. You want to make sure that when you're asking for their time, you ask for just 15 minutes, and if it turns into longer, great. If it seems like that person is really busy and they're having a hard time accepting an informational interview request for the evening, maybe you offer to go in the morning and take them a cup of coffee. Or you say to them, maybe we can have a phone conversation first, and then if your phone conversation goes well, maybe they'll be more likely the next time to give you a little bit of FaceTime. And then lastly, the thing to keep in mind with informational interviews is as with any networking, if you can figure out a way that you can make it beneficial for them as well as for yourself, then that makes all the difference. If someone feels like you have good information for them, they'll be more likely to want to talk with you and do an informational interview than if they just feel like there's nothing in it for them. So that's why I mentioned asking them for advice. Make them feel like an expert, and they'll feel more respected and be more likely to want to talk with you. So I just want to give you quickly a couple of examples about the types of things that you might discuss in informational interviews, whether they relate to the industry, the specific job you're looking for, or just general advice questions from that person. Keep in mind that there are lots of different kinds of questions you can ask in an informational interview, but these are just some ideas about what will get that person talking. And note, many of these are questions that you couldn't really find out the answers if you look at their LinkedIn profile. So what do you like most about your job? Or what's the most challenging thing of your work? You can ask questions about the industry. What are some of the most important trends right now? Or if you do some research ahead of time and you know that there are a couple of really big important trends occurring in that industry, you could ask that individual what their thoughts are on that trend and how that would make an impact in the field. You can ask for advice on your resume. Ask if they would be willing to take a couple of minutes and review the resume, and then this is a great way to have an excuse to follow up with them. If they give you some critique for your resume, you go home, make the changes, and then a day or so later you send it to them and say, would you mind taking another look? I've incorporated the recommended changes. You also could ask for advice on other people to talk with. And this is a really important one because if someone has a good rapport with you and you talk with them, then you're able to find out if they have other people in their network that you could talk with as well. Because this is a great way to get them referring you to other people. And finally, follow-up is crucial. It's very, very important that you express your appreciation to the person, because even if you talk with them for 10 or 15 minutes on the phone, the information that they've given you may be extremely valuable for your job search. This is also important, as I said, so that if they do hear about job opportunities or they are interested in pursuing a continued mutual professional relationship, you want to stay top of mind. Make sure that you follow up by connecting on LinkedIn if you're not already connected. Particularly if the person is extremely active on Twitter or Instagram or any other social media sites, make sure that you follow them on those. And finally, even if you don't know that it was the best rapport or it was a very brief connection, it still makes sense to follow up, thank them for their time, and still keep in touch with them from time to time ahead. You never know how things might change. Now, before I turn things over to Kelsey Richardson, I just wanted to remind everyone that we're going to take questions here at the end. So please feel free to send those in whenever you think of them, and we'll address them once Kelsey has spoken. Kelsey, take it away.
Thank you, Shannon. Good afternoon, everyone. As Shannon mentioned, I'm Kelsey Richardson, Career Advisor at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. And as Shannon just discussed, LinkedIn and informational interviewing are very important tools for networking. And in addition, volunteerism can also be a great way to network and create new opportunities for yourself. Volunteering allows you the opportunity for skill development, whether that's learning new skills or keeping your skills sharp or using your existing skills in new ways. Which, of course, all of this helps you build your resume more. Volunteering also allows for career exploration, so it can give you an introduction to new professional paths. And if you're a career changer and you need experience in your newly chosen field, volunteering can be a great way to be able to do that and sort of get your feet wet. And if you're transitioning, let's say, from corporate to nonprofit or nonprofit to government, it also can acclimate you with what it's like in a different sector. And then also you can become more familiar with other workplaces, other types of office cultures, and volunteer, and it's kind of a less committal way to have to do it, because when you get a new job, you're making a commitment. But when you're volunteering, you're making a commitment to volunteer, but it allows you to kind of experiment and get to know other aspects of the workplace. And then finally, an opportunity for employment is really one of the best benefits of volunteering. It can give you access to internal job postings or pretty much be a potential pathway to a permanent position. For example, in the healthcare field, volunteering at hospitals is especially a great way to get your foot in the door. And then nonprofits particularly have volunteer needs. And so if you are interested in nonprofits and you volunteer at one, often you could, if you can't just get information for internal job postings, then you can network, get to know your colleagues more, and sometimes they'll refer you for job openings. And it can just, before you know it, turn into a permanent job opportunity. So we have some resources for you also. For volunteerism, idealist.org is one of the best resources. They have a whole volunteer resource center on the site, and you can go and you can get tips on it. They have lots of volunteer position listings. NYC.gov is another great resource, as well as New York Cares and volunteermatch.org. So definitely check out those resources. And just also so you know, we will be emailing you a copy of the PowerPoint afterwards, so you will have access to these resources. So another excellent tool for networking is to consider joining a professional association. Now, the purpose of professional associations is that they're organizations that are established to further specific professions and the interests of those who work in them. So what that means is that there's automatically a networking component built into their purpose, which is really great. And specifically, you have an opportunity to target networking with individuals and employers in your specific industry. Membership in a professional association also gives you exposure to current practices and professional development conferences, presentations, and workshops. And for example, Shannon Gallo and I are members of a professional association in our career development field called NACE, which stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And they have an amazing annual conference, as well as seminars, webinars, roundtable discussions, and many, many resources for us. And so professional associations are just wonderful to tap into for being able to expand your knowledge of your field and connect with others more. And also, I want to mention that often there are special student discounted rates for membership to professional associations, and those student rates are often significantly less than the professional rate. So keep that in mind, that while you're a student, it's a good way to take advantage of being able to tap into this resource. And then also, some campuses have student professional association chapters, and these create a great way for you to take advantage of student leadership opportunities. And then we've got some resources for professional associations in terms of finding the right ones for you. So the New York State Office of the Professions has a great comprehensive list, and check out the Directory of Associations as well as the General Professional Organizations and Associations for Networking. So check out all of those resources, and you can do searches by different criteria, and it should be really helpful to help you find one or two organizations that can be a great resource for you. And then finally, another resource for your networking toolkit is campus involvement. You can consider CUNY campus student associations and community involvement. The CUNY School of Professional Studies has a student association, and if you're interested in involvement in the student leadership role, you can contact our very own Anthony Sweeney, our virtual campus coordinator. And the next election for the SPS Student Association actually will be held in mid-April, which is coming right up, so definitely reach out if you're interested. There's also the SPS community blog, and you can still sign up to write for the blog. New writers are welcomed. And there's, of course, the SPS LinkedIn group that Shannon mentioned earlier. And there's also an SPS Entrepreneurship Network. And this is a network of SPS students, faculty, staff, and alumni who are interested in starting a business or who already own a business. Now, we also have CUNY-wide committees and associations. The Malave Leadership Academy is a really great way for students to get involved. It helps students develop leadership values and skills, and allows students to participate in various service projects as well as educational workshops and conferences. The Malave Leadership Academy is ideal for students particularly who are interested in community service or having an impact on public policy, or who wish to learn how to participate in the political process. If you're interested in joining, you can contact a student life representative on your CUNY campus, and for SPS, of course, that would be Anthony Sweeney. And then there's also the CUNY Arts Initiative, which was recently created. And it was created to give CUNY students access to New York City's cultural institutions and provide educational and networking opportunities. Through the program, free or discounted admission is provided to some of New York City's cultural venues, and there are also paid internship opportunities with cultural organizations, such as the American Museum of Natural History, the Brooklyn Children's Museum, the Whitney Museum, the New York Hall of Science, just to name a few. And then I also wanted to mention that there are women's leadership conferences and there are tech conferences as well. And CUNY students receive email announcements about these CUNY-wide committees and conferences from the CUNY Central Office of Student Affairs. So make sure that you check your email, your CUNY email, as often as you can, very regularly, because you don't want to miss any of these notices that would come in if you want to tap into one of these resources.
Thank you, Kelsey. So we're going to go ahead and start answering some of the questions. We've got some coming in, but you have an opportunity to send more. We've got more than 15 minutes left, so we would love to hear from you. We feel like networking is such a huge, complex topic and so crucial that it's hard for us to cover it adequately, so we hope that you'll send your questions so we can provide some more detail. So I've got a couple here. I'll go ahead and start with this one, and this is something I typically would mention when I go over LinkedIn. There's a question about using LinkedIn Premium. This is the sort of the option to use LinkedIn. You would pay to get some sort of additional premium use of the site. I think that, you know, certainly because LinkedIn is such a powerful resource that you know, it may be useful for some to take advantage of that, but I also wanted to mention that, you know, it is costly, and particularly if you're a job seeker, you may not have a lot of additional funding to pay for something like that, and I think that there are so many things that you can do with LinkedIn that are free. I've been using the site regularly for 15 years probably, since the very beginning, and I've never paid to use the site, and I've never felt that my use of the site was lacking because of that. Clearly, I'm not giving any shameless plugs for LinkedIn with that, but if this is something you're considering, you know, I urge you to make sure that you're using the site's free features to their fullest extent before you decide on payment. Other questions about LinkedIn, if it's a site that you are interested in getting more involved with and you want some pointers, I did want to mention that Kelsey and myself, we are happy to talk with you. If you contact us and make an appointment, we're happy to talk with you and go over LinkedIn with you more in depth, help you with your profile, help you with your settings and those kinds of things. So keep in mind that it is, you know, such a complex tool that we hope you'll reach out to us in the future for individual help. We do have more questions coming in. Here's some questions, sort of a general networking question, and I think both Kelsey and myself will add a little bit to this one. They're asking about networking and how, you know, I've mentioned, and I think we talk a lot about how it really needs to be cyclical, and it needs to be a two-way street where you're offering as much to someone in networking as you're hoping they will give in return. And the question is, what can be offered to someone that you network with as opposed to just expecting something from them? Kelsey, do you want to add a little bit to this, and then I can contribute too?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the first things that comes to mind is, just as Shannon had mentioned earlier when she was talking about LinkedIn, when you set up your LinkedIn preferences, make sure that you do allow other people to be able to view your connections, because that, just setting yourself up like that allows your new connections to be able to make other connections through you, and you can always help facilitate the introduction through LinkedIn as well. So, you know, that is definitely something that you can offer, and you can always think about, let's say, if you join the LinkedIn SPS group, post articles that you think would be helpful to other people. Even like writing for the SBS community blog, that's offering something to your colleagues. offering some knowledge about some topic that may be helpful to other people. So I think like participating in networking events and trying to help other people tap into resources too is one way that you can be of service to others through this networking process.
I agree, Kelsey. Those are all really good ideas. Sort of, individual types of things that you can offer, particularly if you're looking to do informational interviewing and you're trying to find individuals that might be able to benefit from you. If you talk with someone, and I had shown an article that a colleague had written online, if you share articles with people in your network that would be of interest to them or their career. If you, sometimes it's simply saying, I really appreciate you taking time to meet with me. What can I do to help you? Because, sometimes it may be as simple as, could you share with me what you think is important in this industry? I know, because Kelsey and I work in career advising, there certainly are times when people will reach out to us and ask for help for their friend or their son or daughter, or another person, they'll ask us for help and advice with job search. And to a point, I'd like to be able to do those things because I feel like it's useful for me to make sure that I'm providing a service to people, but it's also, useful to them for obvious reasons. Another thing that can be helpful is when you're thinking in terms of it being a two-way street, that, keeping in touch with people and saying, when someone does help you out and you say thank you to them, offer to help them and say to them, the next time you're in need of help with a project, let me know. And Kelsey talked about volunteering as well. That can be a simple way to offer something, particularly if you are trying to network within nonprofits. Say to the person, do you have any events coming up that I can help with? But I think that's a really important thing to focus on in terms of your networking, is how can you help your network, and in turn, how will they help you? Here's a couple questions. We'll go back to LinkedIn. What's the recommendation on the type of profile image that should be used on LinkedIn? I think that it gets to a point where you want to make sure that your image is professional, but also it doesn't have to be too conservative. If you take the time to have nice professional headshots done, great. Otherwise, it can be just as simple as having someone take a photo of yourself when you're dressed professionally with a nice, muted background, and, a mobile phone works just fine. I think the important thing is that you do have a profile photo and that it's visible to your network so that they're able to sort of match a face with a name. And also so that if you meet someone at a networking event and then you follow up with them sometime later, it helps to jog their memory of who you are. Kelsey, do you have any other thoughts about the photos?
Only that we try as often as we can when we have events here at SPS to also offer a LinkedIn photo booth so that we can allow SPS students to have an opportunity to get a photo taken during the course of the event to upload a new profile to your LinkedIn profile there. So add in a new photo. So we try to make that available because it is a great resource, and it's really high quality photo equipment, and it's nice to be able to do that.
Great idea. Okay, so we'll stick with LinkedIn for the next question. Keep in mind we've got a little less than 10 minutes, so if you want to send more questions, we do have some more time. I'll let you start on this one, Kelsey. What are some of the best ways to get recruiters or potential networking contacts to notice your LinkedIn profile?
Sure. Well, definitely to make sure that your profile is as complete as possible. Sometimes students or alumni create or start to create a LinkedIn profile and just have a little bit of it filled in, and it's not a full complete profile. So that's one of the things to definitely make sure that you take the time to fully complete your profile so that you do have groups that you've joined, you have some organizations that you're following, you have your work history in there, and also that your LinkedIn profile is consistent with your resume, because a lot of times recruiters are also taking a look at that when they're seeking people out. If they've received your resume and they go, I think I want to bring this person into interview, they might take a look at your LinkedIn profile and see, oh, is it consistent? And oh, what more can I find out from this profile? And so you want to make sure that you have additional useful information in it for them.
Yeah, I agree, Kelsey. I think that's one of the most important things. A lot of times, and I mentioned at the beginning that 96% of recruiters use social media for job search. So I think it's important to align your LinkedIn profile with your resume, of course, and also keep in mind that your LinkedIn profile can be longer and more detailed. So you can do things like adding portfolios of your work. If you're doing an e-portfolio within your classes here at SPS, that's something that can be added to your profile. If you blog, you can add that to your profile. Even academic projects, research papers, those kinds of things can be added to your profile to help with just sort of showing a little bit more of your capabilities and adding credibility to yourself. The other thing to keep in mind is the skills and those types of things. You can include a lot more of those skills on your LinkedIn profile, and those would be searched by recruiters when they're looking for keywords. So it's important to make sure that your LinkedIn profile has all of your different skill sets listed, even if it's not something that's endorsed. If you have it on your profile, it still has the potential to come up in keyword search results. So it's certainly a good idea to make sure your profile has a lot of very complete information. If there's any more questions, let us know. Here's one. Okay, so we'll take this one to informational interviews. And I think in general, this sort of question relates to networking in general. Is it possible to follow up too much after an informational interview? What is the right balance when following up? Kelsey, do you want to start with this one and then I'll finish it out?
Sure. Well, Shannon definitely emphasized that it is very important to follow up, when it comes to the informational interviewing, and it is really important. So sometimes I know that people feel hesitant about following up because they don't want to bother people. They already spent some time with this person and the person was generous enough to give up their time. Then following up, am I bothering them? No, you're definitely not bothering them to follow up. So you absolutely should do that. And it is a way to express appreciation for the fact that they did spend some time with you. So I would say that it's a really great idea to follow up definitely initially after you have your meeting with the person, and then to follow up afterwards. If you're going to follow up beyond that, it's usually good to have a purpose for that, whether, again, it's what we had talked about in terms of recommending an article they might be interested in, or if it's following them or noticing activity in your feed if they're a LinkedIn connection. But I'd say follow up with a purpose is pretty much the most important thing to keep in mind.
I think that's a great way to put it, Kelsey. The only other thing that I would add is that particularly with informational interviews, when you're starting to conclude the interview, you can always ask the person what they would feel most comfortable with. You could say something like, this conversation has been so valuable to me, and I want to make sure that I maintain a connection with you, but I don't want to be bothersome. Would it be okay if I followed up with you once a month? Or may I send you an email every couple of weeks? And just sort of ask them what they would be most comfortable with. And you may find that they're eager to hear from you more because they feel a little bit invested in your success, and they want you to be they want you to take advantage of the advice that they've taken time to give you. So sometimes it can be as simple as just asking. The other thing about networking and following up is that, if it if you step into their shoes, and if someone had decided to follow up with you in the way that you're following up with them, how would it make you feel? And I think that that's a good way to judge if you're being too pushy and following up too much versus if you're, sort of maintaining the right balance. So, and I think that that's a good question, and it's important to keep those things in mind when you're job searching. Okay, here's a question. This relates to what Kelsey talked about a little bit. How can a professional association help if you're not able to attend conferences? Kelsey, you want to start with that one, and then I'll add?
Sure. If you're not able to attend conferences for a professional association that you've joined, there are many other resources that they usually have available, especially with online resources taking over the world the way they have. So they'll have a blog that you can go to their site and read that will offer advice in the field. They'll have various types of perhaps like webinar opportunities that you might be able to take advantage of even if you can't go in person to attend a conference. And often they have forums where you can communicate with other members as well. And so there are a variety of different types of resources that are offered through the professional associations. So, don't be dismayed and think, oh, I won't join one because I really can't travel to conferences, because, again, there are just many ways that you can take advantage of what they have to offer.
That's really great advice, Kelsey. And as she mentioned, the way that there's so much available to us online, going back to LinkedIn, if you're a member in a professional association, they typically will have LinkedIn groups. And if you're not able to attend a conference, you still are able to participate in discussions within the LinkedIn groups. You're able to access jobs that might be posted by members in those LinkedIn groups. And many times if you are in a group with someone and you aren't necessarily connected with them directly, but you're in the same group, you're able to send them an email through LinkedIn. And so that can be another useful way to sort of leverage your membership from a professional association with your use of LinkedIn. The other thing that many times happens is professional associations have membership directories, and if you're not able to attend conferences, you still might be able to pick and choose individuals within that association to network with otherwise. Maybe it would be a good way to open up a conversation and possibly ask for an informational interview if you're in a professional association with someone. I think we've just about used all of our time that we have today. I wanted to thank all of you for joining us. I hope that you've picked up some new ideas and tips about networking beyond the norm. I know that I learned a couple of new things from Kelsey. As she mentioned, we will be sharing the slides with everyone, and we also will be sending out a link to a real quick survey. I promise it'll probably take less than a minute to let us know what you thought of today's webinar. We hope that it was useful, and we hope that you'll be able to join us coming up in April for our third webinar in our series all about networking. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.